Hi everybody, sanibonani. Welcome to my channel. Igama lami Ndlovu, and on this channel siyasifunde incwadi ebhalwe ngolimi lwethu lesiZulu bese siza la sokhuluma ngazo. Le ndawo esifundile senzela laba phela basuke bengenaso isikhathi sokuthi bayifunde incwadi nalabo abasuke benqena nje ukufunda. Siyaphinda futhi sibuka ama reality shows ethu ala eMzansi bese siyaphinda futhi siza la sizokwenza ama-recaps or ama-reviews bese siphinda sikhuluma nga-any other issues avukayo uma ngabe lama-shows sesiwabukile kwi-TV. Guys, uma ngabe i-voice yami sounds funny, I think I am coming down with flu. And I have a really bad cough. I hope I won't be coughing all over this video. I just drank something to sort of to soften my throat because so I hope I won't be coughing here. But if your voice sounds unusual, it's because of that. I was so careful at the Drakensberg ukuthi ingangenwa amakhaza, so I'm surprised ukuthi it seems like affectile kancane nje. Anyway, you guys, uma ngabe uyaqala ukujoina namhlanje and you really like our content, do not forget to press the subscribe button la ngezansi bese uyaphinda futhi upressa i-notification bell eduze kwa-subscribe ukuze phela uthole umyalezo uma ngabe umsebenzi omusha sesiwufakile. Kanjalo uma ufuna ukuba member, press the join button bese ulandela ama-instructions there. Guys, niyakhumbula ngo-2020, beginning of 2020, around abo March kanjena, i-COVID i-COVID yafika guys, yafika i-COVID. We didn't even know what COVID was, and a lot of people were getting affected. Niyabakhumbula nalaba abawu-10 babeyephi kambe nkosi yami e-Italy. Yabona labo bantu labo, one day the government might have to tell us who those people were. Bahamba batravela bona, because not December we already knew ukuthi there was a pandemic, you know, and it was possibly going to affect us not in South Africa, but we were safe until those 10 people bahamba angazi bebengabavaleli ingane bavele bahlale ngakhona ngalapho. But anyway, you guys, but it was a tough time. A lot of us, ama-employers had to respect ama-instructions of government ukuthi everyone needed to stay at home, and a lot of us are not essential workers, so we had to stop working. And I was one of the people that were lucky enough that my employer could afford to still pay us even though we're sick higher, and eventually we were I remember because at some point we didn't even get our laptops from work because we thought it was gonna be like 2 weeks or so, and then it was more than that. But anyway, eventually we were able to work from home and all of that. But it was a tough time, guys. The uncertainty was just a lot because we did not know how long our employers were going to be able to afford to keep a lot of us. And then it was a hard time also for those who were essential workers, because my partner was an essential worker, and him leaving to go to work every day was like nerve-wracking for us because we did not know like the process of him coming back home. We were nervous. We were happy that he's coming back, but at the same time nervous because we don't know if he's coming back with ilokuzana COVID. And saziphuza iphuzo saphuza ama-concoctions, kuthiwa this concoction, kuthiwa ini, kuthiwa amahlamvu and ama-gum trees, saphuza because trying to stay alive. But we cannot deny, guys, because a lot of us lost a lot of people, guys. We lost a lot of family members. There are family members that we lost that, when you think about it now, if we were aware of certain things, they would still be here. It's very sad. It was a sad time, and we were losing family members, and we were not able to go and bury our family members. I remember my brother-in-law, when he passed, it was a serious time for all of us in the family because we tried to go to the funeral, but then again we couldn't. We just went halfway there. It's a story for another time, but it really was a sad time. And some families lost more than one family member. We lost colleagues. I remember a time where every day there was an email coming in emsebenzini to say rest in peace to whoever. Like every department lost somebody when it came to COVID. There was a time when I wouldn't even open those emails because it got too much. If it wasn't an employer, it was if it wasn't a colleague, it was a family member of a colleague, and some colleagues were sick. It was a hard time for a lot of us, and a lot of us, even in terms of ukondla, my family members, it was hard, and some people were not being paid around that time, so it was hard, and there were a lot of issues in just the safety, and I think honestly it contributed to a level of poverty that we have right now, ilokuzana COVID. Kodwa-ke, while a lot of us were being normal people going through stuff that normal people were going through at that time, there were people, guys, that were not going through what we were going through. And this guy that I'm going to talk about today is one of those people. Hammilton Ndlovu, while we were worried about whether kusasa ingane zethu are going to be able to eat, whether when our kids will be able to go back to school, and all of that, there were kids at that time who were doing grade 12, and we were not even sure if they were going to be able to write their exams. While we, as normal people, were worried about that, lo muntu lona yena went on to post on social media. I mean, social media at that time was all about COVID. People were posting rest in peace here, rest in peace there, ama stats, COVID, in ama tips about being safe and what you can drink, what you can bath with, uqumangani and all that. Yeah, and it was like he's living in another country, because wavele wa posta njena ukuthi yena uthenge imoto at the same time. 5 luxury cars, like a fleet of luxury cars. Yes, guys, in South Africa, sometimes you feel like you are in a comedy show. You are in a comedy show, but a comedy show where you can actually die for real. And he posted, and I remember thinking, even if you had bought the 5 cars, during COVID, I mean, really, like, honestly, you think that, honestly, like, it's the right time to do it, but it did, you guys. And it trended, that thing, which this guy has bought these 5 cars all at the same time. And guys, listen, best inhliziyo encane back then. Inhliziyo bezincane. Not only inhliziyo bezincane as normal citizens South Africa, but bezincane to officials zethu, bezincane to government yethu. You know what I mean? Because they had so much pressure on them, even though nabo kunezinto ezithile nje that they did ezinga-understandekanga. Anyway, you guys, inhliziyo bezincane, so we started asking ukuthi kahle kahle lo muntu yena uyithathaphi imali during such a hard time, a country going through a hard time, yena uzothenga imoto ezo-5. Couldn't you just do ama package, a grocery, and give to some families imali leya one of those cars, like, really now? And then it came out ukuthi kanti ke imali leyo was he had got the money from itender ethile that he had got from the government. Lapho ke savele saba upset ngempela. I think we had every reason to be upset because we were going through a hard time in South Africa. A lot of ama-tenders abephuma ngaleso sikhathi were relating to indaba yokuthi to keep communities safe, to keep our citizens as South Africa safe. And people that got those tenders were supposed to do what the tenders were about, but they never rendered the services that they were supposed to render. Instead, they went and they bought cars like this guy did. And I think, honestly, over and above him just being evil, because to spend imali that you are supposed to spend helping people during a pandemic and spend that money on yourself, that is evil. But on top of that, he was just plain stupid. He was like, he was an idiot. He really was. And I think that's part of the reason that the law has went after him, because trust me, he is not the only one that did something like this during the time when South African citizens needed help. But he was stupid because he posted about it on the internet. Anyway, you guys, now it has come out, because we forgot about it, guys, because these things in South Africa zenzeka, where corruption is pointed out, but you never know what happens to the person. They are never arrested. They are never they never made to pay back the money. But there is this article that came out to say, it's written for the Daily Sun on the 7th of June, which was yesterday. It says, flashy businessman Ndlovu ordered to pay the 158 million back to the states, because obviously that's the amount of money that the tender was worth at the time. That's the money that he got from the government. Imagine, guys, giving somebody a tender of 158 million. I mean, how many people would the government have empowered if they split that money and made it into 10 different smaller tenders and give it to 10 different young people in South Africa who might possibly do what they're supposed to do to render the services to the South African citizens. Why do just one big tender instead of saying, okay, we're going to get 10 different people or 15 different people and they're going to do 10 different duties relating to this tender. I think that they could do that, honestly, in South Africa. Then you have 15 different people that will be working on something for South Africa. They might not all be corrupt, but if you're going to give 158 million to somebody, I don't know how these tenders work, honestly. The people that are making these decisions, I don't understand. To have that amount of money go to just one person, for me, it never makes sense. This article is written by Umfundekelwa Mkhulisi. Thank you so much for sharing such an important information. Article goes, flamboyant Hammilton Ndlovu has been ordered to pay back 158 million he received from the fraudulent COVID-19 personal protective equipment contract. Ungambona la ukuthi usonke kanjani Nkosi yami, mhlawumbe iwona nalo 158 million. Guys, can you imagine ukuthi this tender was supposed to be for the PPE, personal protection equipment. Whether this protection equipment was supposed to be for hospitals or labs, imagine how those people who were supposed to use these protective gears are not getting them. You're not going to get in the lab and do tests on COVID samples and not being protected yourself as an employer. And we all know how many doctors passed, how many, when I think about it, how many nurses passed because they were working without appropriate protective gear. And they say that the special tribunal on Tuesday, 7 June, further ordered that Ndlovu forfeits assets and be blacklisted from doing business with the state. Honestly, I think that is fair. He must pay back the money and he must never be able to do business with him. And I think anybody that is associated, they must also have done that, because anybody that is associated with him, if you are a relative of him, you are a friend of him, if you have a photo that you've ever taken with this Hammilton gun, you must never be able to do business with the government. I think they should have added that. And then, so they said that they've ordered Ndlovu to forfeit assets and be blacklisted from doing business with the state. The orders come at the back of the court's decision. Why is this thing now? I'm on another page now. Sorry guys, let me just go back to this story. Hey, yabona ke manje kuba nezikorokoro zefoni. Okay, I'm back with it now. Okay, and they said the orders came at the back of the court's decision that reviewed and set aside the 172 million PPE contracts awarded to the controversial businessman by National Health Laboratory Services. So now, why is he only paying back 158 million? Okay. Judge Lebogang Modiba granted an order that declared as unconstitutional, invalid, irregular, and ordered contracts awarded to Hammilton fronting with his companies Bakati Security Services and Projects. Hammilton Holding. I'm just thinking, guys, it sounds like he has a security company, but he's granted this tender that has nothing to Hey guys, no. In South Africa, the Special Tribunal also ordered that NHLS to invoke provision of Section 15 of the Preferential Procurement Policy framework to enlist Hammilton and his companies to be restricted from doing business with the state. They must not be restricted. They must never, ever, ever be able to do business with the government. Ndlovu became an instant social media hit in 2020 when he posted videos of luxury cars, including Jeep Grand Cherokee, 3 Porsches, and a Lamborghini Urus worth 11 million. Imagine. Ndlovu's assets, including flashy cars, will within 120 court days be sold to the public auction. If you have money, find out where that auction is and go buy that car, because we need the money back to the states, you guys. But that's what the article said. I really think that, guys, it's a good thing that they're making him pay back the money. I do not understand the difference between what the tender was for, because it was for 172 million, but he's only being made to pay back 158 million. I don't understand that difference, but I'm just so glad that he's being made to pay back the money. They're saying that they're going to confiscate his assets, obviously, to pay back this debt. But I think that, honestly, you guys, prison time should have been part of his punishment. Prison time should have been part of this punishment, because it was just more than him taking the money. It was the flashing of this act in people's face during the time that was very difficult for the South African citizens. We always complain about our government, guys, and our justice system when it doesn't serve us. And I think that it is important that we point it out when they do something that is positive. I think this is positive for South Africa. The punishment, I still feel like it's not enough, but for us to be able to see, sometimes people that take participate in corrupt actions are held accountable sometimes. And we all know in South Africa it's sometimes, but I think we have to take what we can get. There are people that will never will never be held accountable. That's why I say, go to this guy, more than taking the money, I think he's also paying for his stupidity. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Tell me what you think about it. Do you even remember Hammilton Ndlovu? It was killer. Sine stress nge-COVID and uposta imoto eziwu-5 ayithenge at the same time. I don't even know how we bought those cars, because every place was supposed to be closed ngaleso sikhathi. They must also prosecute the car salesman. How are you at work? Because you were not an essential worker at the time. Anyway, guys, please like the video before and share it with your friends, with your family, and even with strangers.